Today we pause the chaos of the ring to honor the man who personified professional wrestling for decades. On July 24th, 2025, medics were dispatched to Hulk Hogan's Clearwater, Florida home for a serious medical issue just before 10 a.m. He was pronounced dead around 11:17 a.m. at a nearby hospital. He was 71 years old, and authorities confirmed there was no signs of foul play.
A legacy that ran wild. He was a six-time heavyweight champion across WWE, formerly WWF and WCW, forever at the center of Hulkamania. Headlined the first WrestleMania in 1985 and delivered iconic moments like the body slam of Andre the Giant. Inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame twice, first as a solo superstar in 2005, then as a founding member of the NWO in 2020. Crossing to pop culture with roles in Rocky III, Hogan Knows Best, and countless guest spots that turned him into a global phenomenon.
On today's episode, over the next hour, we'll revisit Terry Hulk Hogan Belair's rise from regional star to international icon. Revisit the matches and promos that define an era. Whether you cheered him as a hero or booed him as his iconic heel turn in the NWO, today we celebrate the incredible mark he left on sports and entertainment. And we'd like to welcome back for a powerful and unfortunate podcast as we celebrate the life of Hulk Hogan. But we'd like to also welcome back, joining the memories of Hulk, Steve Rubin. Steve, thanks for joining us on the celebration of Hulk's life. Welcome back, my friend.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And I didn't think the second time I'd be on your show would be for these unfortunate circumstances, but
it's been a hard week.
Here we are. You know, it has. For those of us that grew up in the '80s, it's been a hard week with, and you say, you know, famous people pass away in threes, and you had this week you had Malcolm Jamal Warner, and you had Ozzy Osbourne, and you know, even more surprisingly, Hulk, and all three of those guys are ingrained in pop culture. I mean, you had Malcolm Jamal Warner was on probably one of the most groundbreaking sitcoms in the history of television. You know, again, keeping Bill Cosby's later years out of the conversation here.
Yes.
But similarly, very similar stories, obviously, between Bill Cosby and Hulk Hogan. But you cannot discount the cultural impact that the Cosby Show had in the '80s, and you know, Ozzy Osbourne as a cultural phenomenon as well, and Hulk being probably the biggest of the cultural phenomenons out of the three of them, and all three to pass away in the same week is a big hit for those of us that grew up in the '80s.
I think we're all mentally exhausted. I would say that, right, Roy? And we just did an Ozzy special too, Steve. So if you haven't seen that, Roy did a great job. It's about 30-minute tribute to Ozzy. So if you haven't checked that out, Roy had a great tribute to him. So it has been a hard week.
Chance to digest that about Ozzy, I was really hard, and then Hogan, and it's like, what's going on? It was really a rough week to think about those memories, great memories, but
and you think about, you know, things happen for a reason, and they happen because they're supposed to happen at that time, and especially with Ozzy, where he did that concert like 3 weeks ago, the last, you know, Black Sabbath reunion concert.
Ironic that
and you know, it was like Ozzy needed to have that, and then he was good to go. And it's crazy how that stuff happens sometimes.
It is. And you know, they always say they come in threes, and damn did they sure forever come in threes this week. And that's why we're here, ladies and gentlemen, because Hulk Hogan, with all three of us on here, had meant something to us. Whether it was we met him. I have a story that I can tell about my ex-girlfriend's son that, you know, he met him and how he came out of his truck to go through the crowd just to get a picture, which you'll see later, what I'll share on the screen. I know Roy has some stories, and Steve, I know you have some stories. We talked off air about WrestleMania 18 and the day after in the Sky Dome on Monday Night Raw of a 10-minute ovation. And I remember when he came out, and I sent you that link just for memories. And when you saw that, and we'll get right into it, when you saw that, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but just to kind of get the goosebumps going with the Hulkamania, right? Like, what did it feel like after watching probably the most iconic, handing of the torch per se, right?
Mm.
Hulk was handing the torch over to The Rock, and just the next day, the ovation you got. You said you were in the crowd for that. Talk a little bit about that.
I was in the crowd for both of those moments, obviously,
Okay.
and uh, you could start with the match with The Rock, you know, right away, and to be out in the crowd and witness that. Um, it's there are a few times that I can remember where we always say that WWE was live, it's live theater, and the crowd is such an important part of the show, and the crowd can really a good crowd can really turn a great match into a iconic match. And we've seen it, multiple times over the years where the crowd involvement can take something from an 8 to an 11,
Right.
and there, most recently, I can remember the crowd in Lyon, France last year for Backlash,
Oh, I love that. I was
and
so hyped for that.
and the was it AJ Styles'
AJ Styles.
introduction, and they were shaking
Oh
the
my
ring,
God.
and, you know, and uh,
Hmm.
you there's a handful of those moments that I can remember being out in the crowd for. Triple H, when he came back at Madison Square Garden, was probably the loudest one time just reaction I'd ever been around at that
Hmm.
point.
Hmm.
And you're out in the crowd and you're getting the goosebumps from
They
being
call it
out
the
there.
pop, right? In wrestling terms,
Right,
the pop.
right.
Yeah.
It's pop.
Hmm.
But and then there's a pop and then there's a sustained roar. The pop is the initial,
Yeah.
when the music first hits and they rise up out of their seats and you get
Right.
that first initial like bomb that goes off. But then for it to sustain as long as it did for Triple H at that time, and then we're talking about Hogan, in Montreal, that crowd gave him a standing ovation for what seemed like 10 minutes, and he kept trying to start to talk, and they wouldn't let him,
Yep.
and
Yeah. Put the mic up,
uh,
put it back down, kept going.
right, and
Hmm.
and that takes a pro and somebody who really knows how to work the crowd, like Hogan was one of the best at, to understand that the crowd here is what's driving the historic moment here, to let them go and to react to that. And Hogan was probably one of the best at that. Being able to read the crowd and see what because the crowd can take your match into a different direction if you want to let them do that.
Right.
And that's what happened with him and Rock, where nobody initially thought that he was going to get the baby face reaction that he was going to get when he came out, and he did. And the two of them, called an audible, and they were able to read the crowd and react off of that, and kind of change the way that match was designed to allow the crowd to become part of it. And that is a art more than it is a science.
Can I ask you a question about the audible real quick on that? So when they
Mhm,
call an
mhm.
audible, is it approved by in the back in Gorilla by Vince or let's say even Triple H, and then it's sent out to like Mike Chioda or something like that back in the day?
It's so I don't know that they called the audible in terms of the finish of the match,
Okay.
and but in terms of how they kind of played off of each other, a lot
Hmm.
of that's just called in the ring. And to Vince, to his credit, would give guys like Triple H and Austin and Rock, he give them a little bit of creative liberty to be able to
Okay.
read the crowd and be out there, and trust in their ability to understand the business and understand the crowd. And everybody, and if you were in the room that night in the stadium, you knew it, and you can't force it the other direction. You have to go with what the crowd is, especially when they're that vocal, and it was amazing. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's some things that you know are uniquely WWE, and the crowd interaction for that in general is uniquely WWE. The crowd is a live, interactive part of the show. To be able to have that and be able to play off of that and be able to incorporate that, like I said before, is a unique ability. And Hogan was one of the best at it.
He was. Roy, go for it, man.
I was going to say Hogan and The Rock at that moment when
Mhm.
they first encountered, and for all the encounters they had, the way they would look sideways. All right, I'm going to look left, you're going to look right, and then turn their
Mhm.
heads, and then look the other way, and that
Mhm.
split the crowd down the middle, where it's like Hogan, Hogan, Rocky, Rock, yeah. They just knew it, and that was magic. And I mean, they probably didn't even have to say a word. It was probably like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and look left, you look
Right.
right, and
I,
that right
I went
there was
back the
magic.
other night, and I watched that match again the other night, and uh, and you could see Hogan like starting to do the old school babyface Hogan type things that he didn't do
With the
as
finger.
Hollywood at the time. The
Mm-hmm.
finger
Yeah.
and the flexing
Mm-hmm.
and the ear to the crowd. He was doing that, and that's Hogan being the best at that, and playing off of that, and then the reaction that he had of the surprise when they actually popped for it. That he
Mm-hmm.
gave them that reaction of that,
Oh, I
like he was
popped.
surprised that they
I
popped
jumped
for
out
it.
of my seat at home, man. I was like, he's doing it. He's doing it. And then we
Right.
always know the boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom to the rope. Big boot,
Right.
big boot, and man, does The Rock know how to sell, man. When he gave him that leg
Right.
drop, his whole
Right.
body went up. I mean, The Rock is a great performer. I got to give him that. That
and
was one of
and
the most iconic.
and Rock's facial reactions of
Mm-hmm.
the surprise that he
Yeah.
had, that the crowd was, kind of not turning on him, but kind of siding with Hogan,
Mm-hmm.
and that match is a master class in storytelling,
Right.
WWE way, and that's what it's all about. It's about the storytelling, and it's about the crowd interaction, and we can talk more about that. But Hogan, like I said, Hogan was the best, if not the best, one of the best at that.
Right. So, let's get into a little bit about the tributes and stuff. I know that SmackDown this past Friday, they did a great 10 bell salute like they should. I know there's a couple other promotions out there that weren't doing anything from. We'll get in that another time, but I think they did a great tribute for him and how they did it. And obviously, Jimmy Hart is a big part of it. And I'll segue right into you, Roy. I know you have some questions about that, but it made me tear up, and I actually watched it twice, and because like we said off the air, people need to understand, like, Hulk Hogan is like our Elvis, and growing up in the '80s, right? And this one does sting a lot, and I'm still not over it. And you'll see in the background, actually, Roy got me those Hulk Hogan little figures there up there, those little pillow figures, whatever you want to call them. We got the NWO Hollywood Hogan and Hulk Hogan, and I got the Clearwater, Florida one, literally on June 25th. So I was just there this year on June 25th, and I that's memorable because came from his store, and I'm never wearing that shirt ever. So that's gonna be my tribute to him. I'm gonna put it in a case and put it away because I got it from his store, and means a lot to me. So I'm gonna choke up a little bit right now because I am a little upset about it because he met my ex-girlfriend's son. I mean, I'll tell you that story right before Roy gets into his, and there were a bunch of people. Obviously, you know how that goes in Clearwater. Hogan shows up in his truck, so everyone's like, Hogan, Hogan, can I get a picture? Can I get a picture? Can I get a signature? Blah 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 blah. Well, I'm not the type of person that does that, so I'm like, I just leave him alone because I know how that is. And he's like, well, the aunt of my ex says, "F that." She had a little couple cocktails in her, so she had a little bit of balls. So she went out there and she went through the crowd. She goes, "Mr. Hogan, can you do me a favor? I got a sweet boy over here, my grandson. He's very shy. He wanted to approach you." He goes, "Oh, heck yeah." He gets out of his truck, goes through the crowd, and you'll see it in this picture here. I'll run the footage here, and you'll see it in this one picture is the one that he was this one right here. Let me try to get up. Come on, Rob, fast, and I'm not fast enough. But anyways, this was the night that they were there, and they were sitting in the crowd, and it was right next to him, right there. So one guy grabbed him first, and then they took the picture next. And I'll show that at the end of the show. But he was very nice. He says, "Thank you, brother." Gave him a big hug, and he signed his action figure for him. I always told, the collectors, the young kids, if you want to collect and they sign it, the box, you can't take the figure out of the box. So he left the figure in the box, and from that day on, and I checked in on him. He's quite upset too, because it means a lot to even the young kids that are starting against wrestling. Hulk Hogan, once again, as you talked about, he started this. Without Hulk Hogan, there would be no filled arenas. Let's go back to the Pontiac Dome with 93,000 people, WrestleMania 3 even, and we'll get into that, the slam of Andre the Giant. And Roy, I know we talked about that yesterday as well.
All across platforms, two things. One, with the reinvention of going heel, and when knowing at that time that the
Most
red
iconic heel turn of all time.
was tired, right? Wasn't getting the reaction, and then to go the other route and then get bigger than ever that way. And the other is just in everyday life, right? Like I was working in corporate America in 2005. I was in a call center, and it was Halloween, and they allowed us to dress up. So what do? I dress up as Hogan, right? Twice there at this company. And so I come in for Halloween, and everybody's just like, "Wow, that's freaking amazing," so they took my picture, and my mom put that up on she was like, "Oh, that's awesome," and the other thing was, I was going to mention is I grew the mustache, and for Halloween I went to a party.
Good picture, Roy.
Bleached. And and then I just left it until it faded away. But you walk in a room. Yeah, I had the yellow rain pants. I'm trying to put this thing together, right? I got the red Scottie Pippen '94 All-Star Game shoes. I got the Hulkamania shirt, the bandana, and just wearing
brother
that
out, trying to get
into a room.
brother. Yep.
People would react because that's how much of an impact he had, whether it was corporate America or just a house party. People were like, "That's freaking awesome," and he would. That's the impact he had. All all walks of life and all genres and ages, right? To the point of the young boy there. Now he's going to go back and he's going to watch, and and it's going to carry on to another generation. But he was just that iconic. Great memories, man. That's all I can say.
And that another thing too that was honestly iconic too, which we didn't think was going to happen. We'll share this right here. Vince McMahon on X went and paid tribute. The world lost a treasure today. Hulk Hogan was the greatest superstar of all time, someone who was loved and admired around the world. He's a trailblazer, the first performer who transitioned from being a wrestler star into a global phenomenon. His grit, unbridled thirst for success were unparalleled. That's nice. I think he needed to do that, and we don't have to get into the politics behind of it, but just having Vince McMahon coming out and saying that about Hulk Hogan, because Vince should. Vince, what does Vince want? Money. If you can put asses in seats, you're going to be wearing that belt. Well, Hulk Hogan brought asses to seats, and WrestleMania 3 was one of my most iconic, one of my first WrestleManias for me that I ever watched, and that's when I became a Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant fan, was back then, because I knew nothing about wrestling. And that's when I first saw. I always thought, wasn't there supposed to be 93,000 people? Wasn't there supposed to be 93,000 people at every event when you're growing up? You didn't realize that. But Hulk Hogan changed the face of professional wrestling. And let's go into the heel turn now, boys. NWO. When this all started, WCW, I think it was Bash at the Beach. And he came out, and who's the third member? Tony Schiavone, always on the call. He had a nice tribute as well. Tony Schiavone comes out. I'm sorry, Tony Schiavone. Hulk Hogan comes out, and he's like, who is it? And then Bobby Heenan, he's the third man. I bet you got hit. Shut up. You hit Bobby. Shut up, Bobby. Come on. So he gets in the ring and drops that leg drop on Macho Man, and that was over. And everyone was fucking pissed. You're talking about kids, mothers. I brought my son to this event. They're throwing shit in the ring, toilet paper, their drinks, food, whatever, and they're all pissed off. That's when you know you made a great heel turn. That's when you know that. And I know Eric Bischoff was like this. Ching, 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 ching. I'm about to go against the WWE, and we about to have these Monday Night Wars, even better. You know what I mean? And then the outsiders, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash coming in, and that was a huge thing. 'Cause they were just on WWE TV the week before, just like Lex Luger. The change, the face of professional wrestling with the Monday Night Wars changed everything, and Hulk Hogan was a huge part of that.
Everybody was pissed at first, but then it became cool to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like Scott Hall, like that was cool. Like, yeah.
Well, you have to think about it this way, right? It's one thing to change the face of culture one time, right?
Mm-hmm.
He did it twice, completely differently too. To be able to, in the '80s, right? Obviously, he was beyond huge in terms of pop culture, and then wrestling has got a history of being cyclical in terms of its popularity, and it'll go to a high, and then it'll kind of come down a little bit, and then it'll go to another high again. So you saw it, in the '80s with Hogan initially the first time. Then it kind of, dipped down a little bit in like 92, 93 when people started to get a little bit tired of the red and yellow. And then it shot back up again in 96, 97, 98, 99 with, Hogan and the NWO and Rock and Austin, and the Attitude Era.
He put over Brock Lesnar too, didn't he?
Right. And and it kind of dipped a little bit again in like 2004, 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And the dips, the thing is that the dips are never as low as the previous low. So it's always a rising tide, but it always comes down a little bit, and then you're seeing it come back up again now with Roman Reigns and the Bloodline story and Cody
Mm-hmm.
Rhodes and that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to reinvent an industry twice and shoot popularity of an entire industry back up again twice, it's pretty amazing if you think about it that way.
It's beautiful. It's pretty
People
iconic.
are still wearing NWO to this day, right? Or
Right.
even think of like Austin with the what. They're
Right.
still yelling what how many years ago?
Right.
That's because of him. I mean, when you can go
Right.
2 years later or whatever, or 30 years and people are still doing that chant or wearing the apparel, that's crazy. That's
And there's always we were talking about this before we started to record. There's always the argument of the chicken and the egg. Could was it Vince that created Hogan? Was it Hogan that created Vince? Or was it the WWE machine that created Hogan? Or was it Hogan that created, Vince? And it's the same thing with, the NWO and Eric Bischoff. Yeah, it was Eric Bischoff's idea for the NWO, but would it have been as big if it wasn't Hogan? Could you have put, you always hear the talks about, that Vince created the Hogan character. And were there other guys that could have stepped into that role and played that role? There are, and at the time, historically, you're talking about guys to have that could have had that bleached blonde, muscled look, superhero. Superstar Billy Graham is always talked about in that way. And, maybe it could have been Jesse Ventura, the guys that had the combination of the look and the possible charisma. There are a lot of guys that had charisma, and there are a lot of guys that had, that were the larger than life look. But the charisma aspect, Dusty Rhodes or Flair at that time had that type of charisma, and Jesse Ventura had the body, and superstar Billy Graham had the body to some, body definitely, and had some of the charisma, but uh, is there another guy that could have stepped into that role and played it as well as Hogan did? And
Right.
that's and embodied, and it's not even playing a role, it's embodying that role, and that role becomes you. And and you see it, the best wrestling gimmicks are always an extension of that person. It's not just a gimmick, so it's The Rock and Austin. It's you turned up to 11,
Right.
you know. So and that was Hogan at the time. And it's not, it becomes, you're not playing a role anymore. That becomes you. And again, it's the same thing. This was Hogan just turned up to 11. And that's where it's the most authentic, and that's where it reaches the audience the best.
Right. Right.
And so, it's an interesting discussion to have, amongst, wrestling fans. Would the explosion of WWE in the 80s happened, anyway, if there could have been another guy in that role that Vince had in his mind, that he wanted that guy. He wanted that guy who was, the personification of America, the walking superhero. That's what Hulk was. He was a real life superhero to a
He
lot of us
was.
growing up as a kid.
I
He
had his
was
vitamins. I had his vitamins too.
right, right.
Hmm.
He was larger than life.
Hmm.
Uh, and you see Superman on screen, Christopher Reeve at the time, and you read comic books, but this guy was a real life walking, talking superhero that you could go see live, when he came to your town. And he was, uh, it was unbelievable. It was, and it hit right at the right time, you know. So it's an interesting discussion to have of whether it could have happened with anybody else. I don't think so. I think it's the combination of, it's the Big Bang is what it is. It's the combination of the right two people at the right time, hitting at the right uh, chord of having their finger on pop culture of what America wanted at the time, and uh, one doesn't happen without the other. Yeah.
Steve,
So.
I wanted to just say to what you're saying too. Think now. Let's go toys that came out then. The plush dolls, the
Mm,
action figures. Because you had Star Wars, and then
mm,
He-Man and all the other stuff. Okay, here comes wrestling
mm,
figures now,
mm, mm,
and then the plush, and then the merch. Rob talked about the vitamins. How about the cartoon now?
mm,
Wrestling comes out. Brad Garrett did the voice, by the way, from Everybody Loves Raymond for Hogan.
mm,
But
Rocky 3.
Rocky 3 and all that all again Hogan had a hand in that, making all that stuff popular.
and he's the one out there doing the work, and obviously Vince is the motor behind the machine. Vince, Hogan is killing himself on every show, making every like 300 days a year on the road, if not more. And he took that role as the face of the operation and owned it. And like I said, one doesn't happen without the other. This is obviously Vince's grand vision, is to be able to take all of this and use it, as the marketing tool, and the merchandise, and the cross promotional aspect of it. Um, and but you can't do it without the talent.
How
It
about
doesn't.
Sports
Yeah, it
Illustrated?
doesn't happen.
No wrestler was ever on the cover of Sports Illustrated
Right.
because it wasn't considered a sport. But then
Right.
Hogan in '85 shows up
Mm,
on Sports freaking
mm.
Illustrated. Like,
And to be able to,
Mhm.
and to have the foresight to uh, developed a partnership with MTV at the time that was just coming up, and MTV
Yeah.
became a cultural phenomenon,
Mm-hmm.
and just the whole rock and wrestling with Cyndi Lauper and Roddy,
WrestleMania
and
one. Mm-hmm.
and it's just all the moving parts. And by the way, you can't do it without Roddy Piper either.
Muhammad Ali was there as well. Yeah.
Every good hero needs a great villain. You
Yeah.
know, so you need so Roddy Piper was the great villain, and Vince is the guy who puts all those moving parts together. And Superman isn't Superman without Lex Luthor to fight against.
Right.
You can have a great hero, but if he doesn't have a great villain to go up against, he's just a hero.
Batman
He's
and
just a
Joker.
guy.
You know.
He's just a
Mm-hmm.
guy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Uh, and that's the storytelling aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So all these different things are the moving parts together, and you can't have one without the other. But to that point, does anybody else play those roles as well as those guys did? I don't. Me
I don't
personally,
think
I don't
so.
think so.
I
I
don't
don't
think
think
so.
so.
I don't.
You
And you
know,
know what? He is on my Mount Rushmore and always has been. Hulk Hogan will always be on my Mount Rushmore. You know, I love the Ultimate Warrior. I love, was it WrestleMania 6 when they had title versus title?
mm,
I know that the Warrior and Hulk weren't getting along. There's a lot of egos going on behind the scenes. I know Randy Savage as well with the Elizabeth thing, but they always come back at the end. And when and me and Roy are God's men, and we always said when he found God and he wanted to kind of recirculate and go back and when him and Roddy actually they became very close near the end
mm,
before Roddy died, and he had that story.
mm,
I just saw that yesterday. I was doing a lot of research, and it tears you up a little bit because sometimes it sucks when you just get when you guys just come back around and say, you know what, brother, maybe we should just cut the bullshit. We're older now. We love each other. We work
mm,
together. Let's, you're a God's person. I'm a God's person. Let's sit down and have a conversation and go over and be brothers again. And when with him saying that, how close they were near the end there, and then Roddy dies,
mm.
that's sad. So I always wanted to say this. When stars leave our planet and go up to heaven, who do you think the first person besides a family member
Mm.
on the wrestling side gave him the entry? Come on in, brother. Come through the gates. Who you think opened the gates for Hulk?
Ooh, that's a good question. Uh, I would like to say Andre.
I was going to say the same thing. I think
I would
Roddy's
like to
back there
say,
too,
yeah, I think
and Macho
Piper's
Man.
there. I think Macho Man's there. I
Hmm.
think and imagine that visual of you're at the pearly gates of heaven, and
Yeah,
the ones that are the three guys that are welcoming you in are Andre, Macho Man, and Piper. Pretty
that's
cool. It's a pretty
that.
cool visual.
That is a pretty damn good visual. It's a pretty damn good visual. Wouldn't you agree, Roy? Don't you think that? I mean, would you say it's the same? You think Andre would be, come on in, brother. Let's have some beers.
He's like,
30 of them,
I showed
Yeah,
you the first
we'll drink a
time
case
on
of
the
wine
ring.
together.
I showed you
right?
around the ring back in the day. Now I'm going to show you around heaven. So
Yeah,
follow me like you followed me down
Mm,
there. Follow me up here this time
yeah.
around.
And that's what this podcast is all about, ladies and gentlemen. Is we're celebrating Terry Hulk Hogan Blair's life. Okay, I mean it's obviously meaningful to me.
mm,
I mean, and I'll share it one more time. Personally, I know it's meaningful to all of us, but personally for me, it's just this picture right here. This is the picture that I was telling you guys about earlier, where he actually came through the crowd and made sure that he took care of my ex's son. His
Look at
name's
that
Everett.
smile on his
And you
face.
see how he has the thing?
mm,
He has the marker ready on the bottom there, and he
mm.
signed that box for him. And he was such a good dude. Gave him a big hug, everything like that. So, that right there is special to me personally, because just making a kid happy is what it's all about. What did you say, Steve, on the first show? The job as entertainers is to put smiles on people's faces,
It's
and
the
that's
fan, the
exactly what I
customer.
did in my field of DJing as well. And that's what we're trying to do. We're not here to smoke anybody. We're not here to get dirt on anybody. So you dirt cheap motherfuckers out there, take a lesson from us, because all we're here to do is like celebrate someone's life, be nice, courteous, share some awesome stories. I mean, look, you want me to make fun of myself? Look at this shit. Look at that hair back then. Bolingbrook Community Television. I was back just 1997. I know there's a blur because I can't get it out, but look at that. All right. So make fun of that. I don't give a shit. But here's the deal. It's all about God, positivity, what we're trying to pull here, stories, awesome stories, and celebration. Unfortunately, like I said, we lost a lot of people this week, and Hulk Hogan was definitely, in my opinion, our Elvis of this generation. So, Roy, any other? Yeah, go for it, Steve.
No, I said it, before we were recording. You have to put, in my opinion, you have to put Hogan in a class with certain people who just changed the game culturally,
Hmm.
in terms of pop culture. So for me, it's Hogan. You're putting him in the same class with Muhammad Ali. You're putting him in the same class with Michael Jackson,
Yes.
Elvis, the Beatles, Michael Jordan,
Hmm.
uh, and the people that just have had a lasting impact on pop culture in America. And and pop culture was invented here in America for the most part.
Mm.
There's an American aspect to pop culture that other countries just don't have. Uh,
Even Al Capone capitalized on it, right? In the
yeah, I
50s.
mean, and it started with TV in the 50s, really, and for historically. And you're talking about, Bogart in the movies, and you're talking about the Steve McQueens and the Tom Cruises and the Spielbergs, you know, um, and the way Spielberg and George Lucas changed the movies, Vince and Hulk Hogan changed wrestling, and
Yes.
there's a reason why it's been a cultural mainstay for 50 plus years, if not more. Wrestling started on TV in the 50s. So you're 75 years of professional wrestling in America, in the mainstream, that's where it really became mainstream is in the 80s with Hulk and Vince.
Hmm.
And there's a reason why it's a $10 billion company at this point. It's because of them. It doesn't happen without Hogan.
It doesn't. Absolutely.
And I just want to say something too about I don't want to get on a soapbox or anything like that, but remember, people, whether they're on TV or just in everyday life, aren't perfect. I mean, I think
I'm pretty damn close, Roy.
people all want to do good. People all want to try to do good.
Nice.
They do. But then there's going to be there are bad moments that we just have a bad day, a bad month, a bad year, whatever it is. Nobody's perfect, right? So to put a face out there and say who is it? What Mother Teresa? I don't know. You can't. But the point of the matter is, I'm hoping out of this tragedy that people could come, like 9/11 we talked about, Steve, right? It's a moment where people come together. And that's what we need right now is more moments of people coming together
Yes.
and talking about
Amen
some
to that.
positivity versus the negativity and the bashing because, right now everything's kind of 50-50 where people stand on things. But let's just focus on what's good, what's right, what's good, and the bad is the bad. It's gonna be. It always is. And no matter what. But come on, let's just focus on some of the good because nobody's perfect. And if you are out there, who are you?
There are
'Cause
so few
we're
of
all
us
not.
that are this close to being perfect, Roy. So few of us.
And and
We have a club, we get together like once a month, the Close to Perfect Club. But
can we join that? Because I want to learn.
no, you're not there yet.
I love it. So I mean, and
It's time
speaking
for
of
another
bashing,
Woodstock, guys, or what?
yeah, let's do
99
it.
was a disaster, but I don't know.
So Roy, let's talk a little bit about that. I want to piggyback off what you just said because there's a lot of bullshit on social media that just, and this is why I fucking hate social media sometimes because you go on there, someone passes away, and then they have to go political right off the bat. Then they have to say bullshit like this, bullshit like that. I really, really wish people out there that understand what families are going through right now and stay off fucking social media. If you don't have anything nice to say after someone passes, including an icon like this, stay off social media. But obviously, no one's going to listen to me, right? But at the same time, it's just getting out of hand, and that's where I just had to shut social media off and go to a positive place in my head and start watching old school stuff. Like I watched WrestleMania 18 again. I watched a lot of videos of when he turned. I mean, I remember it in my head. I can play that whole thing in my head without having to watch it again. But those were moments in my life. That is celebrating someone's life. But then you have number two person over here is like, fuck this person, this is what he did, this is what he did, this is what he did, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, all for the views. And that's what is sickening about this country and the world, for that say, is that when someone dies, they didn't even take 2 seconds to just bash them. And that's unfortunate because back in the day, right, Steve, when we had the Attitude Era, there's no such thing as social media. I think email was just coming around. I would log in and I'm like, you've got mail, and right, that's it. That's how I pop in, and you had the online stuff, and then you had the chat boxes. That's it. And then MySpace came out. Oh my God, I'm not in your top 5. What the fuck you doing? I'm not friends with you anymore. Oh my God, you moved me from 5 to 8. Do you remember MySpace when you had the top 10 of friends? And if you let's say you have
I'm
100
too young
friends,
to remember that.
see, it's too young.
I had a MySpace page, but I don't remember like that part of it. But
That's where
uh,
all the social media drama started. There was a test, like, oh my God, I got dumped off your top 10, and then people started not talking to each other. That happened to me. I was in the DJ scene, and it's like, oh, I'm not in your top 5 anymore. But my point I'm getting to is just, if you don't have anything nice to say, isn't what our parents teach us that? Don't say it at all. But it's all about the views today, man, and that's why this podcast is completely different from a lot of others out there. Those dirt cheap mother effers, and I'll keep saying it. We come here to share positivity. We come here to, you know, give the message of the Lord and have great guests on like Steve to talk about his experience back with Hulkamania, and this has been awesome. So I know we're at 42 minutes now. I want to kind of give the floor, Roy, to you and Steve, if you guys have any other things to talk about. I know WrestleMania 18 was before WrestleMania 18 for me. I'll show the picture next, but I was in the crowd for that as well, Steve, for the stare off. That was probably one of the most iconic, most goosebump feeling I've ever had, other than the Blackhawks winning the Stanley Cup. But other than that, that was the most goosebumps I've ever had in the Allstate Arena. That was amazing. That was amazing. Roy, what about you?
Again, it goes back to this stuff, right? I'm a
There you go.
collector.
Show
So
it.
now we even get into trading cards. Topps, right? Topps was known for baseball, but then, they even got into, this is from 85, and I picked this up yesterday. I was at a sports card show, and when I saw that, and, with Mean Gene on there, I was like, okay, I have all his figures. I have a lot of his figures. I didn't have a card, and especially that one from '85 because that was like considered the rookie card. It wasn't just him on there alone, but with him and Mean Gene, I was like, "That's amazing!" Right? To make me want to spend it was $25 to make me want to spend it because it's a feeling. You feel good. It's nostalgia. It's what was right in your world, what made you happy at that time or times now. Memorabilia is a big thing to me, Steve. You, the stories I see in your room and what you share, right? It's more than just objects or things. I think, it's memories, right? That's why we collect, or that's why we have, because and it's also if it's given to you, like you had an awesome story or something. That's priceless. You can't put a price tag on that. That's a
it
feeling.
can't because it can't be replicated. It's irreplaceable. You know,
It's not
Absolutely.
just
so
stuff. It's
it's interesting that you bring up you show that one of Hulk and Mean Gene. Uh, obviously, again, you talk about Hulk and Vince together, and that was the behind the scenes part of it, but the on camera part of it was Hulk and Mean Gene, and two of them were always together. I got to spend one of the great honors of my career at WWE is I got to spend a good amount of time with Mean Gene.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
so when he used to do the WWE Confidential show back in the early 2000s, excuse me, I directed those on cameras with Gene. So I got
Wow.
to spend a
wow. I
good
did
amount
not
of
know
time
that,
with
Steve.
him.
That's amazing, man.
And I worked on that show a good amount. So I got to spend some quality time with Mean Gene. And again, you're talking about your childhood memories. You know, Mean Gene was the voice of our childhood.
You
You know,
damn
his
right.
voice
Yep.
was synonymous with WWE at the time. And the two of them together, you know, let me tell you something, Mean Gene. It was always let me tell you something, Mean
Let me tell you
Gene.
something, Mean Gene.
Right.
Yep.
And you want to talk about a guy that was just as good off camera as he was on camera. You know, Mean Gene was one of the best guys, period.
Period.
And when he,
100%.
similarly to this week with Hulk, when Mean Gene passed away, uh, I remember I was with my family in Philadelphia, just going on vacation,
Mm-hmm.
and I got word that Mean Gene passed away, and we were in a coffee shop in Philadelphia, and like I just broke down in the middle of the coffee shop.
Oh man.
And because again, it's a piece of your childhood
Right.
that's now gone.
And
You
you got
know,
to spend a lot of time with them
and
too.
I could spend a lot of time with
Yeah.
him as well. And he would tell stories about Hulk and just and we would sit and have a cocktail, me and Gene, and just to sit under his learning tree and uh, just listen to him tell stories, and just he was one of those guys that would command a room also.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and uh, but again, the part of you that becomes associated with these guys, and doesn't have to be wrestling. It could be whatever you're into. It could be Springsteen. It could be music. It could be Jordan. When you're watching, if you're a basketball fan growing up, these things become ingrained in your memory, and they become part of your persona as a person.
Mm-hmm.
As your, uh, we talked about it before we came on camera that you associate these people with moments in time, and how you relate them back to your personal life, and that's where it touches you. We were talking before we started recording that my father passed away in March, and I can remember when Hogan we got word that Hogan passed away. I instantly went to the fact that my dad took me to shows when I was a kid to see Hulk Hogan, and it was part of our relationship, and it was part of the things that we did as a father and a son, and it made me think of my dad. And you are able to these things in pop culture or in culture or in entertainment relate back to you as a human being and the seminal moments in your life, and that's what you remember, and you remember fondly, and that's the feeling that only entertainment can give to you. And whether it's WWE or whatever you're into, uh, that's part of the human experience. It's why these guys have such an impact on us.
Yes. Yes. And that's why, I want to get into, I know we have a few more minutes with you, or maybe 10 more minutes with you, Steve. And once again, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your stories about the life of Hulk Hogan and, the memories, even with your dad. And God bless your father. And Roy, God bless your father as well, because I know Roy lost his father a few years ago. So you guys share something, monumental with each other there. And it's just, it still hits me. I'm looking at this picture on the side monitor here, and I'm almost choking up, guys. So hopefully I don't. But it's just this is a hard one. It's very hard, and it goes to this, which is probably one of my most iconic ones. Look at that hair, by the way. I don't know if you see it. Damn camera is blurry, but
Beautiful.
this
Tips.
picture is going to be even worse. So I apologize, but I want to show proof that this is the night. Remember Gangrel and all them? The Brood. This is the night
Mhm.
that The Rock and Hulk Hogan had the stare down on Monday Night Raw, and then the NWO beat the shit out of The Rock after all that. But that was the most iconic stare down in the history of
It's
professional
when we
wrestling.
crashed the tractor trailer into the ambulance in the backstage parking
See,
lot at
told
the
you, Roy.
Allstate Arena.
Yep, that's what happened after that. I know that was pre-recorded, but that
Yeah. That stuff has to be pre-recorded.
Because I don't think The Rock was in there actually, but
No.
just making it happen, and the Hulk Hogan going in there, then he do the and then the cut scene came in.
Hmm.
And how many angles of the ambulance did you guys do on that one? It was like boom, 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 boom
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
inside. Wasn't there an
Mhm.
inside camera too or something? Did you guys put a camera on the inside?
I don't remember. I don't think that would be the case because that would, that would be like if you had a camera inside the ambulance, it would be like you knew it was going to happen.
True, true. True, but still, I mean, all those angles too. That was great. I mean, Chicago has always been one of. I mean, Steve Austin said it best as well. He goes, "I love it, brother. I love going to Chicago, man. Best acoustics in the nation." And Allstate Arena
So
and United Center have the best acoustics in the nation, in my opinion.
the Allstate Arena is an old piece of shit, but it's one of those
Use Mount
places
Horizon.
where,
Well, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's iconic in the realm of WWE history because of the fact, number one, the crowd is always live.
Hmm.
Number two, it's got about a 50-foot ceiling, so it's big and intimate at the same time. It's deceptively big in terms of the amount of people that are in there. 17, 18,000 if you did the full in the round. And
Right.
the sections are big and low and long, and the ceiling is all wood. So the sound just bounces everywhere. So the acoustics in there are crazy, crazy good for anything.
Hmm.
Um, and it's taken on, it's kind of like the garden where it's taken on a personality of its own because of the number of iconic moments that have happened there with WWE. And that's not done by accident, by the way. It's designed that way because we know we're going to Chicago and we know
Hmm.
that we're going to hit, Allstate Arena, and it's going to be crowd is live. So they purposely will design the storyline around things to, guys will debut at Chicago, or big
Arena.
storyline will happen in Chicago or the Garden or LA because of the fact of where they
Right.
are. You're
And
not going to do a major, debut really in like Little Rock, Arkansas. It's not going to have the
true.
same,
The
the
same
same
effect. Yeah.
same effect, or you're not going to get the same reaction off of it, or you're not
Right.
going to get the same media coverage.
Right.
So yeah, inside baseball there's a reason why things happen in the arenas that they happen in most of the time. Uh,
Well, and then even
so
the most iconic part too, when Cody Rhodes getting his ass beat by The Rock, the final boss with the
mm,
belt, that was in the back of Allstate
Mama
Arena
Ro-
as well. So
mm,
they waited for that moment, and that's
right.
when Rock dropped the F bomb for the first time. I was like, "What the fuck is going? He's saying that on TV right now?"
Hmm.
And that also happened in Allstate Arena. So that's I mean, I've
Chris
always
Jericho,
appreciated.
his
Oh,
debut
I was there for
was
that
that,
too, baby.
you know,
I loved it.
one of the best debuts in WWE history.
Yes.
Chris Jericho at Allstate
Break the
Arena.
walls
Uh,
down,
right.
dude.
Uh,
Fucking awesome. So
for
glad you brought
for
that up.
weeks with the countdown to the millennium,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it was counting down to Chicago for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
you
And
know,
I loved it.
uh, because they're smart fans. There are uh, crowds that react, and then there are smart fans that
Mm-hmm.
react. And Chicago is one of them. New York is obviously one of them. There's a reason why Triple H came back at the Garden,
Yeah, of course.
and uh,
I love it.
so yeah.
I love that writing.
Ironically speaking, guys, you mentioned Jericho's debut. That was on August 9th, 1999, when Hogan in WCW that night, when we were channel flipping and standing in a hallway, I got a TV in one room and a TV in the other so I could see both
Mhm.
going on. But that's when Hogan did the yellow and red that night when he came out in WCW and he came back in the yellow and red that night. So that was an iconic date that I'll always remember because he
That's
came
called
out,
counter programming in the business,
man.
Roy.
It was like that was an iconic day right there, and a
We call
fitting.
that counter programming, strategic counter programming.
Yes.
Exactly, exactly.
Were you guys ever watching Steve in the back too, back in the Attitude Era day? Did you guys have WCW on? Were you always watching that?
They would have it on in our TV truck to be able to like, judge. If they were in
Commercial breaks?
commercial break, we would
Yeah.
come out, or
Right.
um, I can't remember like us having it back in like a room, but the TV obviously it would be on in Gorilla and it would be on in the TV truck,
Hmm.
and uh, that's so. From my perspective, it came up as we started requiring that venues turn off all the TVs in suites, you know, for our shows because people would be at our show and watching WCW on their suite TVs,
Oh,
and our cameras would pick that up, and we're
oh
like,
shit.
yeah, we can't have that.
Yeah. Then the other iconic one too, and I know, once again we're talking about Hulk Hogan here, but there's so many memories with WCW that Hulk Hogan. The reason why the Monday Night Wars occurred too is because of Hulk Hogan, NWO, right? And Eric Bischoff and everything. But when Vince bought out WCW, and I know Roy, we remember this iconic moment when Shane McMahon came on WCW TV. Did you guys in the production staff, did you guys know this was happening, or did you guys were had to
We
be
found out. I
surprised?
found out that day
No
that it was
shit.
happening. We walked in. So we walked into the building in Cleveland. From
Hmm.
what I understand, that whole deal happened over like the course of a weekend,
That's what I
and
heard. Okay,
uh,
confirmed. Okay.
and I remember walking into it was in Cleveland,
Hmm.
walking into a production meeting in Cleveland, and those of us that didn't necessarily have to be in the know at that time found out about it, and we're like, well, we bought WCW and we're doing the simulcast tonight, and we're like, what? We just bought WCW, and uh, I was on the floor again when I think I was floor managing at that time. I wasn't doing the TV event relations part of it at that point, and that whole promo segment with Vince and Shane, where Shane comes out on WCW TV. I'm ringside for that.
Hmm.
Uh, And, again, none of us knew the full parameters of what it meant at that time and how it was going to be incorporated into the storyline or even into the company going forward at that point. But yeah, we found out that day that that was happening.
Is it the same thing with CM Punk? Were you a part of that production when CM Punk came back for the first time in Chicago? Remember that? And
Uh,
Seth Rollins got all pissed off, and
Again, yeah,
everything.
we,
Is that
no,
the same
no,
thing?
we,
Because
I
no one
didn't,
knew nothing.
we didn't know that it was happening at all.
Yeah, because I
Uh,
think what was told, Bailey was one of the ones that only knew, and I think maybe a couple other people, and that was it.
our security obviously knew about it because they had to get him in the building,
Hmm.
and they snuck him right into Triple H's office, and those of us, yeah, again, I was out on the floor for that. Like, again, another massive,
Pop.
surprise. Yeah,
Hmm.
they're in those situations, the guys that need to know or the know, and the ones that don't, you don't know. So like, obviously our graphics people had to know, and our production people had to know to some degree to have his graphics ready, and to have his music ready, and to have,
Right.
uh, and again, those are things that our TV truck has just in case all the time, you know. So it's not really that big of a deal. They'll probably find out like an hour or two before, or it's done by text or like a backhaul conversation. Hey, he's coming in tonight. We need to have this, and then people that need to know, and then the people that don't need to know don't know. But
Right.
I had no clue about that,
So going back to when Vince
and,
and
and nor do I
bought
want
WC,
to half the time. Unless I have to know about things, in order to make
you wanted to be surprised too,
right.
right?
Yeah, you don't want to
As a
know,
wrestling fan. That's good.
right,
Yeah, I like that because I wouldn't want to know. Don't tell me shit. Surprise me. Because I want to get a
right,
pop. Right? It's like going to a movie theater with a friend that saw the damn movie 3 times. Hey, bro, watch this happen. He's gonna do this, do that. It's like
right.
don't do
Yeah,
that.
it happened in the storyline.
Mhm.
As for my job responsibilities, I didn't need to know. So, there was nothing that was happening that was going to affect my job or how we needed to do anything from a show perspective for that scenario. So, in that situation, I don't want to know.
Right. So when Vince bought WCW and Shane, that storyline was going on between father and son because they had one of the best storylines too. Obviously, the best storyline in history we can say is probably Steve Austin and Vince McMahon, right? Let's just be real. probably one of the best storylines in the Attitude Era. Steve and Vince going at each other, beating the shit out of each other. But when that happens, obviously the NWO is now coming into WWE. Did you get the opportunity to meet Hulk Hogan and all that at that time when you came in? And if so, how were they? Like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall getting the NWO, coming from WCW over to WWE, basically. How
I
was that?
mean, all again, yeah. So there are a few times for me when I talked about it on the previous podcast. You try to remain professional and you try to
Right.
be uh, do your job. And there are a few times where you know 8-year-old Steve, all of a sudden overcomes professional Steve at that point. And it happened to me the first time I met Roddy Piper and the first time I met Ricky Steamboat. Those were my favorites growing up. And then obviously the first time I met Hogan, all of a sudden you're 8-year-old Steve again, and you're trying to be professional, and you're like, holy shit, this Hulk Hogan's right here. So first time I met him, yeah, it was all of a sudden you're like, we talked about it on the previous podcast. You have these moments of how the fuck did I get here? You know,
Hmm.
over 25 years of being in the business and being, with the company. And, first time I met Bulk, I was like, how the hell did I get here? Like, this was one of my childhood heroes growing up.
Yeah,
And now I'm working with him. And
it's
uh,
amazing.
and, uh, you know, at that point, I didn't have a ton to do with him. Always very professional and always very courteous in interactions, but my interactions with him were never more than, hey Hulk, how you doing? Hey brother, uh, welcome back Hulk, or when he would
Sure.
leave, not be around for a while and come back, or we'd make sure that he had his dressing room and he had his things in the dressing room that he needed, and as he got older and his physical health was not as good, he couldn't walk. I mean, the last time that we had him in Saudi Arabia with us, we had to have a golf cart for him to be able to take him up to the stage. And then, but once the red light went on, he performed. But back at house, he was having a hard time getting around. And they talk about as you know he was never the greatest in ring performer in terms of his wrestling ability, but he didn't
Yeah.
have to be. That would he his appeal was never the fact that he was a technical, you know,
He's not Bret
wizard.
Hart.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
not Bret Hart, he's not Ric Flair, he's not Shawn Michaels,
Right.
and uh, he's not Kurt Angle,
Oh, I
and
love Kurt. He's one of my top
uh,
three.
you
He should
know,
be on my Mount Rushmore too.
and but he didn't have to be.
Hmm.
Where his greatness was in the storytelling and his charisma and the way he could connect to a crowd and tell a story and command a crowd, and nobody did it better than him. But going back to whether or not he was a technical wizard in the ring or not, you're doing that leg drop over
Yeah.
and over and
Over and
over and
over.
over again for 30 years, and the impact
So
that
long.
that takes on your spine,
Hmm.
just doing that one maneuver over and over again and landing bang on your spine for 40 years, uh,
Takes a
obviously took a
toll.
major physical toll on him. And
Hmm.
you'd hear him talk about the number of surgeries he's had over the years, like 30 surgeries or whatever it was. And uh, for him not to be able to walk the way he was, he was not able to. He walked with a cane, and we had to have a golf cart taking him around. But the fact that he still showed up for his fans, and when the red light came on, he was still Hulk, and turned it on when he could turn it on is a testament to who he was as a performer and as a professional, and how much he cared for his audience and his fans, and always delivered. No matter
Always
what you're
delivered.
going through personally or physically, always delivered for his for his fans.
Roy, have any last words here? I know this tribute has been it's just been amazing. Steve, once again, thank you for coming on short notice and sharing your stories with Hulk Hogan. It's been amazing. Obviously, you're going to be a resident guest with us. We'd love to have you on in the future. We have more to talk about.
Maybe I'll get
Obviously,
paid eventually.
yeah, maybe we will get paid too. It'll happen. I'll pay you. But Roy, go for it.
It's my pleasure.
I was just going to say, I think he got the most out of his life, if we can be honest, at 71. I think, considering all the abuse his body took and everything, I think and same with Ozzy at 76, I think that's pretty damn good. If I can make it that long in anybody, right? But all the stuff they put their bodies through to make it that long is pretty good. And I know,
Yeah.
like Steve McMichael said it. He goes, if I had to do it all over again, or even Jim McMahon from the '85 Bears, because coming from Chicago, that team was like that, magic. And they all said, "Shit, the way we feel, what we would all do it all over again." Because
There's a curve in terms of wrestler years versus regular human years,
yeah,
and it's about a 10-15 year curve. So if you're 71, as Hogan was when he passed away, he was really like physically about 85 in
yeah,
normal people years. Because of the amount of abuse their body takes from, number one, the constant repetitive bumping and impact on your body, but also, like we talked about in the previous podcast, the physical toll that being on the road puts on your body for all those years over and over again, for lack of sleep and for not sleeping in the same bed and for the quick turnarounds and the long hours and the being on planes all the time and being in cars all the time. So we're not even talking about the recreational activities.
yeah.
That we all know went on back
Because
in
you
the
got to
'80s.
Elvis. The show's got to go on, right?
You know,
You got to go to bed and you got to get up and you got to perform. So you take something to go to bed and you take something to get up, right?
right, and the pain, the prescription painkillers and the performance enhancing drugs or the recreational drugs that we all
Recreational
knew
stuff.
that were prevalent in the '80s and '90s, and that were
Mhm.
so again, it's similar to Ozzy was 76, was probably about 90 in terms of physically, in terms of real person years. Uh, but there's a curve in terms of wrestling. So when you get into your 70s as a wrestler, it's a pretty good run.
Pretty good.
Uh,
Damn straight.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
It's
God
been
bless
amazing.
them.
Yeah, God bless.
We thank you for coming on this show, Steve. And there's so much more I would want to talk about, because I know one of the current wrestlers, and this is for another day, but you talk about the self care. Raquel Rodriguez has a condition where
mhm,
stress brings it out in her
mhm,
body with like histamine.
mhm,
So, how in the hell does she deal with that? I would
mhm.
love to hear that story behind the curtain one day. But no, we thank you. We had a wonderful show here,
Mhm.
paying tribute to Hulk Hogan, and thank you for being a part of this. This was
Yeah.
magic.
And
Thank
it
you.
wouldn't be a show without me saying, Steve, give my best to live for me, okay? Give my best to live. I'm still trying to shoot my
Yeah,
shot
I
with
might have
Travis,
given you
like
an
Travis
Easter egg
Kelsey.
about Raquel Rodriguez. But
Yeah.
anyway,
So
Yeah, he laid that up for you. Roy laid it up for you.
I love it. I love it. I
Uh,
love it. But guys, it's just been a great show. Steve, once again, Roy, this has been amazing. And one before we leave, we talked about this on the last show, but let's pop this up one more time. And go ahead, Steve.
you
Go
know,
for it, baby.
I'm not going to do the shameless plug on. I'll
Do
leave
it.
that there.
Do it.
I'm going to do the shameless plug on the Hulk Hogan tribute show.
He would
Yeah,
want you to do it,
I'll
brother.
do it
He
for
would
you,
tell you to do it,
brother.
brother. But
shameless plug.
there's a shameless plug right there. But I think
That's all
Hulk
right,
wouldn't
man.
mind. She's like, yeah, just do it, brother.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Hulk,
You're a good
Hulk,
man, Steve.
Hulk was really good at self promotion, and
Mm-hmm.
It's a tribute to
obviously,
him.
There you
So
right,
go.
do
and
it.
Tribute to him one more
it,
time.
again, a marketing genius.
Hmm.
With the Real
Mm-hmm.
American beer and the Real American Freestyle now
Mm-hmm.
coming out, those will be his legacies too, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yes.
and to be able to now turn, even to just kind of go back on the legacy of Hogan and his endearing, significant impact. The fact that these brands are now becoming a thing now.
Hmm.
Real American Beer's been around for what, a year, two,
Yeah.
maybe at the time, and now they're bringing out the Real American Freestyle Wrestling, and they're piggybacking off of Hulk's uh, cultural impact.
Yeah.
40 years later, 40 years after the start of Hulkamania, right, is
Unbelievable.
a significant validation of what
Yeah. Yeah.
his
Yeah.
cultural
Mhm.
impact was. The fact that,
Absolutely.
that still 40 years later, that brand is still as relevant as it was 40 years ago.
I might have to go give me some American beer after the show, Roy. What you thinking? Should I go
I just
do
want a
that?
can for, obviously
Yeah.
to have.
You can
Yeah.
buy it
Yeah.
online now, apparently, I heard.
Oh, you can? Well, then I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go look at that. Look at that as
I
well.
think you can buy it online and have it shipped to you, which is amazing now that you can have alcohol
Alcohol shipped to you. Yeah,
shipped
I
to
think
you.
how they do
The
it,
online
they check
era,
your ID at the door.
Amazon
So
era. Yeah.
there's a little inside joke behind this. You have to show your Vermont ID
Oh,
there, Steve.
No, I'm not going to
When
do
it
that.
comes to the door. No,
Not going to
no,
do
at the
that.
door when they come there, right? You gotta
Not
show
going
them
to
that
do.
ID.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
not. Yeah, I'll go into the Kroger now and get carded at 50 years old, and I'm like, what?
I
I'm
say
50 years
thank
old.
you.
Yeah, can I see your ID? Absolutely, you can.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. I do it all the time,
Cool,
and they
man.
look at it like, "You're 43 now." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, I thought you were 24." I love you, and I love you
yeah,
so much.
It's the
So I
day
love
they
that.
go,
Yeah,
screw it.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can just
Please,
take it.
please card
Really?
me.
You need the
Please,
card
yeah.
me?
yeah,
And
please card me.
speaking of birthdays, this has been recorded on the 27th. Tomorrow we got ourselves a birthday guy. Roy Herman has a birthday coming up tomorrow, so I want to give him
Oh,
an early special birthday shout out here on the show.
well,
So happy birthday,
happy
Roy.
birthday, Roy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
75?
Pardon?
Yeah.
75?
Yeah.
Give or take.
He's just turning 21, so that's why I got him. He's just turning 21. That's all.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
love it. Well,
uh,
any final thoughts before we close it out, boys? Steve, Roy?
I mean, it's been a pleasure to talk to you guys about this. Uh, very therapeutic. Like I said, it's been a rough
Yes.
week
it's
uh,
a
for
counseling.
those. Yeah, and it's and it brings out good memories, and that's what we should remember all these people by is their
Yeah.
good memories that they give us from a cultural and entertainment standpoint.
Yes.
And forget all the politics and the bullshit,
Yeah.
Yeah, for
and
sure. Hmm.
and uh, remember the good times, and that's what it should be, and that's what it's a celebration of life.
God bless that.
It's
Yeah.
not a it's not a memorial. It's a true celebration of his life,
Celebration.
and and yeah, it's seminal. It's been Hulk was one of those seminal uh, memories for me personally growing
Right.
up as a kid, and it'll always will be.
See you one more time, just for him, the Hawkster. That's a tribute to you, my friend.
Yeah.
Roy, any last closing words before we get out of here?
I echo what Steve said, and I think it's
Hmm.
also self reflection to say, what do I mean in people's lives and people that may look to me or love me, and how can I be better and show up every day, um, you know, uh, for that reason. So
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
just
yeah, and again, it's
people
it's
with that.
showing up. Just be present in
Right.
life and in people's life, whether
Because
that doesn't matter
yeah,
how that manifests itself.
you two
You
are
know,
Right.
fathers, so you got kids that are looking up to you. You're their Hulk
Yes.
Hogan, so be their
and
Hulk.
be present.
Yeah,
You know,
Be present. Absolutely.
be present.
Man, you couldn't say it any better. Well, Steve, Roy, this has been a great show, a great celebration. I couldn't ask you again, or I could say this for the 5 million times, Steve. Thanks for coming back on. We'll have to get a contract going for get paid on for next time. But no, in all due honesty,
A
guys, thank
Legends
you.
one,
Huh?
a
What?
Legends contract, or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I need to get.
Legends contract.
Yeah, I need to get paid too for Legends contract. You know that, Roy. Shit. But anyways, it's been a great celebration show. We shared some great stories, some great memories. Everything, Hulk Hogan, his real name Terry, has meant a lot to us growing up as kids. Roy, me and you have always talked about this. It was a sad day in this household. when we heard that news. And hey, Hulk, God bless you, my brother. Thank you for everything you've done for me personally. I know that this is not gonna it's not gonna just go away overnight. This
Yeah.
one's gonna stay for
My
quite a
80
while.
year old mother called
Mhm.
me and said, "Hey, did you hear Hulk Hogan died?"
Wow.
That shows you the cultural impact
Yeah.
that he had. Like and my mother obviously obviously she was there when I was growing up, so she had a little bit of a role in things, but and knew that it was a big thing for me and my dad.
Mhm.
And like the fact that like my mother, was aware of, obviously knew the cultural impact that Hulk Hogan had. And
Right.
it shows how ubiquitous he was.
Yeah.
Right.
And, again, everybody knew him. Everybody, you know, anyway.
I
So,
love it. I love it. No, I love stories like that because, even Roy's mother, for example, as well. She was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he's passed." I mean, it hit a lot of people. So,
mhm.
Because they
you
love
know,
us, they take interest in our lives, and he was
yeah,
part of our lives, so he was a part of theirs too.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, guys, it's been a phenomenal podcast. Thank you so much again, Steve, for coming on. For Roy Herman, Rob Eggers, this has been a celebration of Hulk Hogan's life. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to end it with this, and we're going to give a nice tribute to Hulk Hogan. So thank you guys for joining. We'll see you on the next episode of House Jack City Backstage for you. Take care.